With Thanksgiving just around the corner, we say hello from Moral Side of the News. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. With me today, a distinguished panel, Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Melton School, and joining us on the phone, Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition, and Father Joe Graffis, the Archdiocese of Louisville. Welcome to you, panel. Here we go. We'll get started with our first topic, the election. The midterm election polls were very busy this week. Very simple question, panel. Let's get your takeaway from what the voters decided.
Well, it's Clay Calloway speaking. I think the election was interesting for a lot of reasons. Of course, the most notable was the local mayor election. As Tip O'Neill famously said, all politics is local. So our local mayoral election clearly was noteworthy, coming out from the era of Fisher. A lot had happened under his administration, of course, with Breonna Taylor dominating his last 2 years. So with the election of Craig Greenberg, a Democrat, follows a somewhat predictable path, but I was somewhat still surprised that he did as well as he did with the election. So that is noteworthy. Again, I suspected that Bill Durf would have done a little bit better. His ads seemed to be a bit more impressive. I've seen more of him in different places. So it was interesting to see that Greenberg did prevail in the local mayoral election in Louisville. In a broader beyond that, of course, the Senate race between Booker and Rand Paul. Rand Paul did, I think, predictably well. I think Charles Booker, of course, did very well. He was the first African American to be running for a statewide, aside from Cameron, Democrat to run for a statewide office. He did commendable, all things considered. But Rand Paul prevailed in the U.S. Senate race. Of course, McGarvey, he did prevail here in replacing John Yarmouth. School board races, of course, our very own Corey Shore, he prevailed. All the incumbents prevailed with respect to the school board. So those are some of the big ticket, impactful elections that occurred locally. Of course, beyond Louisville, of course, we had some in Indiana, but most specific down in Georgia, of course, between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock, Reverend Raphael Warnock. That race is going to be a runoff, of course, as many have heard. So, but there was no red wave. I think that is the big surprise on the national scene. There was no red wave to sweep the nation. You still see these blueberries in the midst of tomato soup, with a Democrat grinning here and there, Louisville being one, of course. But that red wave did not come as predicted. So that was somewhat of a surprise.
Father Joe, what's your thought?
I think the other things that you didn't mention, but I'm sure you thought about, was the two amendments went down.
Oh, right, absolutely.
And I really wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised by that. I thought the first one was terribly worded, and I actually think the abortion one was terribly worded. Although a lot of people, obviously from my faith tradition, were a little disappointed in that, but I wasn't surprised. I do think I know Rabbi Stan and a lot of the rabbis, raised a very serious question, I think, for all of us about religious freedom. If we give it to Catholics or Christians, we got to give it to our Jewish brothers and sisters too. And that whole issue gets really messy in lots of ways. So, but I was a little surprised they went down the way they did. I think that nationally it was kind of interesting. One, thank God there was no violence. And most people who lost conceded, which is that didn't sound like that was going to happen beforehand. So that's, I think, some positive signs. And it sounds like the electorate is like, okay, guys, you need to kind of get together and do things together. And divisiveness. We've kind of put you even tighter together than you ever thought you were, whether it's Senate or the House. It's going to be interesting to see if people can at all turn around and say, we've got to work together on some serious problems on all sides in this next election. And I hope that's good. Like you, Clay, I was a little surprised. I know Bill Dariff well, and I thought he ran a good campaign. But I guess in Louisville, Democrats rule, and I don't know whether that's good or that's bad. Dan.
I'm reasonably happy with the returns of the elections. There were some things in Mayor Dariff's campaign that really bothered me, some words that he used in some of the commercials, because the words to me are dog whistles. And in this day and age, those dog whistles resonate loudly and clearly with the Jewish community. I've known Craig Greenberg now for 35 years. He was my student. And I think that Louisville has a good and energetic mayor, and a mayor with a very, very strong ethical base and ethical core. The overall issue that was very troubling to me is the erosion of religion and state. Certainly, I believe with all of my heart that each of our religious faiths can communicate to the people who are our congregants, our communicants, how they should behave, what they should do. But I think the line stops at the door of the church or the synagogue. And because if the line does not stop at the door, then you have one religion telling another religion how they should live their lives. And that's something that our founders were absolutely against. There were candidates this year also in some of the elections, and I believe that a goodly number of them lost, who proudly proclaimed themselves as nationalists. The label nationalist, it terrifies me, because 80, 90 years ago, there were nationalists afoot. And that time, 1/3 of the Jewish population of the world was murdered. And the use of religion in the campaign, there was a campaign that came from the gubernatorial race in Florida. And when I saw the ad, I looked at it and I thought, well, that's kind of weird. It's not Saturday night, because to me, it seemed like something right out of Saturday Night Live. And I mean, the idea that a candidate can refer to himself or herself as a being ordained by God to lead, that's wow. That's wild. But I hope there's a lesson here. And I hope that the lesson is, as you guys both expressed, that people can work together, that we can begin to trust one another across the aisle and bring back a spirit of bipartisanship.
I commend you, Rabbi Miles, all that you said, and agree with you as well. It's a weird climate, weird political climate now. Just looking at the national picture, I mentioned that the red wave that was predicted never occurred. But one thing that is for sure, even though the Republicans are gaining ground in state houses, as in Kentucky, they gained ground in Kentucky. and gaining ground in many other states around the country. The values and the issues that they champion are not popular issues. For example, the majority of the population do not agree with the issues that the Republicans advocate for. That's why they never win a national popular election. Haven't won a national popular election in many years. I think George Bush may have won that last one, maybe.
What about Donald Trump, Clay? He was a Republican. What about Donald Trump? He was a Republican.
But he never won. He never won the popular vote on either election.
Oh, I see. I see what you mean. Yes.
I'm talking about the popular vote. So they haven't won the popular vote in the last 2 or 3 presidential elections. And George Bush, maybe when he got reelected, maybe. But in general, they have not won the popular vote. They lost the popular vote when Hillary Clinton ran. They lost when Trump ran the first and second time. Both times he didn't win with the popular vote. So here you have someone who did not win with the popular vote, who had the ability to select Supreme Court justices based on someone who didn't win the popular vote. So their values are not popular. The abortion issue is not popular. So and I think that was part of the backlash this time, because it ran into the reality, the Red Sea, if you will, of those that were against the abortion issue, because it's not popular. So you have a weird time now where the popular vote does not prevail. And I think that is the true threat to democracy. Democracy at its base means one man and one woman, one vote. So whenever you have just one person, the vote does not win, then you automatically have a problem with democracy. The local elections, of course, statewide, they do operate on that premise. They don't have an electoral college at state and local election. But whenever you have a threat to the one man, one vote, or one woman, one vote factor, then that in itself is a threat to democracy. So I think democracy is, in fact, on trial, as many have been claiming, because it's not so much the right and the left, it's just the right and the wrong. And when democracy is threatened, I think it's a threat to all of us.
I want to follow up with
one of the question.
Go ahead, Father.
Well, my last thing would be brief, was that I would hope out of this election, I have Democratic friends, I have Republican friends, and many of them are not extremists on either side, but have different views and views worth discussing and kind of weighing and all that kind of stuff. And what I hate about it is when we demonize other people, and so often that gets into the extreme religious practice of, we Catholics would have said, some people think they're Gnostics, which we have all the knowledge and the rest of the world doesn't. And I think that's sad on any political position. As we all talk about, morality is messy. And it's not always, it cannot be black and white in many ways, because life is messy and circumstances change. And somehow we've got to be able to say, how can we compromise, and how can we maybe eliminate some things in certain situations so that that we all can meet some common ground. And we're a long way from that, although it sounds like that's what the people are trying to say to politicians. Whether they listen, who knows?
There's another aspect that came out of the race that is disturbing to me, and that is all of a sudden there are judicial races, and
right.
The judicial races that are, thank goodness, in this Commonwealth are ostensibly nonpartisan, have turned extremely partisan. And that's really not healthy at all.
And to follow up, one quick question, panel. You mentioned no violence. but I want to point out great voter turnout. And also, thus far, in my knowledge, no accusations of tampering or wrongdoing with ballots.
Well, yeah,
except in Arizona.
Yeah.
There are a couple of people in Arizona, but I think generally speaking, you're right, John. And I think, I think I give a lot of credit to the secretaries of state, both Democrat and Republican, who really laid out, okay, now we're counting votes and we're going to do so many today and so many tomorrow. We're not going to be finished until X date or that date or something like that. So don't panic about it. We've got 400,000 votes to go through or 40,000 votes to go through. I think that transparency really helps the electorate as well.
Very good, panel. All right, we're off and running on Moral Side of the News. We're about 16 minutes into this program. We'll move on to a second topic. Friday was Veterans Day. It's an opportunity to salute those who served our country. So I turn to our panel and ask you, are there stories, Clay, I think you have one, that inspire you in some way about Veterans Day?
Indeed, I am a Veterans Day baby. I was born on the November 12th, but my mother went in labor at a Veterans Day parade on November the 11th. So I claim Veterans Day as a intricate part of my birth. This is an important birthday for me. I'm going out of town as soon as this broadcast is over, headed out of town to celebrate my birthday. So I'm looking forward to that. So Veterans Day is an important holiday. I like it a lot. People have gained a much greater appreciation for veterans. When we go out in the public square, marketplace, you have many places that publish discounts for veterans. They go out of their way to say thank you for your service. I know many veterans. I tag along with them on Veterans Day and get a discount at various restaurants. So it's always good to get a little treat with hanging out with the veteran. So there appears to be a much greater appreciation for the service of veterans that serve within our community.
I agree with you.
My connection to Veterans Day would be that my father was born on November 11th, a long time ago. And of course, he was in the Navy during World War II, lieutenant commander in the Pacific. And I recall the stories in the picture books that he gave me about that, which gave me a great love for the Navy, not to knock Air Force, Marines, and everybody else, and Army, of course. But I every time I try to see someone who's in uniform or as a veteran, I say, thank you for your service. I think it's the simplest thing that I can say. But so many of them have given their lives, their arms, their legs, and so many gave their very selves over the years that we need to honor them and revere them. So I think it's good to remember. Would that, of course, as a Christian, would that we would not have to do war again? I mean, I think wars and nuclear wars and all that kind of talk is absolutely insane. But too often there's too much killing, like in Ukraine and so many parts of Central America, Central Africa, and so many other parts of the world. As Paul VI once said, no more war, war never again. But that's an ideal. We're a long way from that.
I think this is one place that this country is going in the right direction, the way that we honor and look upon and treat our veterans. I remember what it was like for the service personnel when they returned from Vietnam, and it was the behavior toward them was absolutely detestable. And they didn't deserve that at all. And now we've turned around, thank goodness. And whenever I see a news item about the men and women on those honor flights, I can't help but get rather teary-eyed because of what they have done for us. And to tell you the truth, on so many levels at so many times, we would not be the free country we are without their sacrifice and the sacrifice of the people who did not come home.
Very good. And for our panelists on the phone, you can't see my hand signals today. So I'll tell you, we have about 8 minutes left in this program, Morals.
Okay.
So let's move on to a third topic, and it's a nice topic. And by the way, on Moral Side of the News, we just want to say thank you and salute our veterans out there who watch and listen to this program each and every week. We
Absolutely.
thank you for your service.
Amen.
Our third
Amen.
topic. A Louisville man, Danny Syme, was tired of driving his young children to other cities to enjoy unique children's museums. Better to have one a few blocks away than a few hundred miles away, he said. Now he's helping create the Adventure House of You, Ahoy for short, in Louisville's Portland neighborhood. Plans to open in 2023. Panel, creativity and imaginary play. Isn't that that's just what children need, isn't it?
Well, indeed, I was talking to a pastor who pastors in that area. He pastors the Portland Baptist Church, located on 38th and Market Street. And I mentioned that to him just last night, that this museum was coming to his neighborhood, and that it'd be great for him to support, participate, encourage his congregants and youth in his congregation to experience this very unique museum. So I thought it was most newsworthy and exciting that it's coming in this part of the hemisphere in the city, in the western part and Portland area. So it's always exciting to hear about new learning environments for our young and within our community.
I can't wait to go. I mean, I'm at a point that unfortunately my grandchildren have aged out, but I've got a niece and a nephew that I think would love that museum, and I just enjoy seeing it because it's so incredibly creative. And yes, it is a great children's museum, but there are in the other museums in this city, from the Science Center to the Slugger Museum to the Ali Center to the Speed Museum, there are sections of all of those museums that are definitely engaging and totally kid-friendly.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to have it in Louisville, and I agree with what Stan just said, because there are other places there. I've been to the Children's Museum in Indianapolis several times, and actually it had some incredibly good adult sections in it as well. I also earlier this year was in Florida, and I went to the Space Museum at the NASA at Cape Canaveral, and they had a whole section on space, a children's part that I wandered through, and I said, oh my gosh, I wish I had this when I was a kid, because they were interactive, and it was fascinating. Of course, we can do such more technologically now, and the kids can as well, to learn about space and the stars and all that kind of stuff. I think anything like that is so helpful to not just kids, but even their parents and grandparents and adults as well, because there's so much to learn about cosmology these days and astrology, just all that kind of stuff that helps us grow. And personally, I think also makes me kind of like, oh my God, there has to be a God for all of this science and all this astrology. It's like there has to be a huge mind, much greater than anything we can imagine, that created all of this, and makes me deepen my sense of prayer.
Well, I would like to say also, if I might say, this is Clay Calloway again, the fact that it's in Western Louisville, oftentimes, right, as my pastor, Dr. Cosby, said, rarely do we have any significant destinations in Western Louisville. We have one of the few 18-hole golf courses right there in the Shawnee Golf Course. Years ago, many may remember Fountain Ferry Amusement Park was in Western Louisville. The fairgrounds used to be in Western Louisville. Western Louisville used to be a premier destination for not only the city, but for the region. So to have something that has local and maybe regional interest located in Western Louisville is quite encouraging. I'm glad to hear that it is going to be happening in Western Louisville as a true destination for the city as a whole.
Now,
I agree with that, and I think we're doing a lot better in getting places that people need to see in the West End, like the African American History Museum as well.
Right.
I love the way that building is being totally and completely repurposed. It's turning from what looked to be an eyesore into a place of absolute beauty, creativity, and magic. And Joe, when you mentioned what you were talking about for kids, I'm reminded of talking about the wonders of space at the Rose Planetarium and Space Center at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. To walk into the planetarium, it's amazing. You're in a room where the Big Bang is replicated, and then go on a circular path up to the planetarium. So you're traveling like maybe 300-400 feet, and the timeline starts at the bottom with the Big Bang. And at the end, just as you're about to enter the planetarium, the timeline ends. And the last note on the timeline is all recorded human history. And the portion of all recorded human history on that 400-foot timeline is the width of one strand of human hair.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting.
Fantastic panel. You know what? We're all kids at heart. We all want to go to museums like that, no matter what the age. So that brings to a close a quick and fast-moving moral side of the news with two of our participants on the phone today. Thanks to Rabbi Stan Miles, Reverend Clay Calloway, and Father Joe Graffis. And you can catch this program again anytime. It's on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for Moral Side of the News. And also, it's now a podcast. If you listen to podcasts, just go to your podcast source and search for Moral Side of the News. Thank you to you, panel, on the phone and in person and on the Zoom. Here we are.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Take care.
Have a good day.
All right. So long for now.
Stay safe, everybody.
It's never too early to make a tax-deductible year-end donation to the WHAS Crusade for Children. See the many ways you can donate at WHAScrusade.org. That's WHAScrusade.org. Or mail your donation to WHAS Crusade for Children, 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40202. That's 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky, 40202. Wishing you and yours happy holidays from the WHAS Crusade for Children.